Vahnahbee show. Oh, 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 oh. Come on, let's talk about it. 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 There's so much to talk about. So tune into the Vahnahbee show. Come on, let's talk about it. There's so much you need to know. So if you wanna talk about it, tune into the Vahnahbee show. There's so much to talk about it. There's so much you need to know.
Good evening and welcome to episode 2 of the Vahnahbee show. And we're pretty excited to introduce our guest. But before we do, just want to say thank you to our sponsors, ACS, that's AC Shillingford and Company Limited, with their products Happy and Swinyo and Promex Milk. And also to Home Decor, you can decorate your home completely with the wide array of items available at Home Decor. They're located on Kennedy Avenue, and ACS is right on King George V Street. So check them out. Also to JTEMME, who was responsible for all the, putting all the bits and pieces together. So thank you to Shara and the team, and to IZZAVYBE Entertainment, our videographer and graphic designer. Thank you so much. So we're about to get into the show. Let's introduce our guest. All right, so we're pretty excited to introduce our guest right now, Valda Bruno-Durand. I want to welcome her. She is master trainer in sexual reproductive health. So the topic that we're discussing today, she's pretty versed on it, and we're talking about understanding your sexuality. So Valda, welcome.
Thank you, Vanessa, for having me on the program, and good evening to all your viewers and your listeners as well. It's a pleasure to be here. Certainly, it's a topic that I'm very passionate about and love speaking about, because I think it's very much misunderstood. So I'm happy for the opportunity to, interact and also to educate, of course.
Indeed. So when we talk about your sexuality, understanding your sexuality, is it just like, who am I as a sexual being, or if I'm gay, straight, or in between? I'm sure there's much more to it than that.
Yes, indeed, there's a lot more to it, and it's really what you just mentioned in terms of who am I as a sexual human being. That's the question a lot of people don't ask, because people tend to shy away from sexuality because it's been a taboo topic. People are not comfortable talking about the issues around human sexuality. And so because of that, we kind of minimize the conversation and we minimize the importance of understanding who we are as sexual human beings. But as sexual human beings, it's important to understand all the components of it. Yeah. So it's not really just who am I attracted to or who am I as a sexual human being. It's much more than that. So I like to touch on the components. Five basic components of human sexuality. One of them being sensuality. And when I say sensuality, just to break it down, it means who am I as it relates to my sex appeal. And a lot of people feel that sex appeal has to do with your body type. It may have to do with what you look like, but it is really not necessarily that. And we get that based on our sexual socialization. And there is such a thing. So growing up, if I'm told, you don't have the right shape, or you're ugly, or your breasts are too big, or your thighs are too thick, people internalize these things, and that's how we begin to view ourselves as sexual human beings. So if I'm not comfortable with myself as an individual, as a sexual individual, it will affect my sensuality. I'll be like, turn off the lights. Yes. I'm really shy about my body. I don't want you to see what I look like.
And then I'll wear long skirts.
And then I'll wear long skirts.
Cover my legs.
Yes. Not that there's anything with wearing a long skirt if you choose to. Right. But you go to the beach and you're in a bathing suit, plus you have a tights, then you still want to have a half slip on you. You understand?
Like you're totally covered up.
You're totally covered up. You understand what I mean? So that's one of the components of being a sexual human being. The other component of it is intimacy. And some people have no problem being intimate, or other people have issues being intimate. And intimacy doesn't necessarily mean that your interaction with a lover or somebody that you're going to get personal with. Intimacy is as much a touch,
Right.
a hug.
Right.
You can be
Or
intimate
even
with
eye
your
contact.
children, eye contact.
Yes.
Have your children be intimate with you. You hug them. You guys sit down and have a good conversation.
Exactly.
It doesn't have to be anything sexual.
Right.
But as sexual human beings, we long for that intimate connection.
Yes.
And we don't have it, there's a breakdown. We have a problem.
Right.
Now, the other component is sexualization. And I'll be honest with you, it's my favorite.
Okay.
I'll tell you what. Now, simply put, sexualization is the abuse of the power of sex.
Okay.
So a simple example. So this guy likes you and he's making a break. You're not really interested in him, but you smile, you beat your eyes,
Yes.
and he thinks you're interested. So in his mind, okay, I'm getting through, so I can buy her a gift. And that may be your intention, to get him to buy you something.
Right.
Maybe see you look like a tebe, you know, a local children.
You have somebody on the table.
You have a little change.
Yeah.
And get
Let
a
me
little
go
from
first.
this, so just beat my eyes.
Yeah.
And that is what sexualization is.
Okay.
And you'd be surprised, children use it on their parents. So it's something that starts from very early. It may not be to the extent,
Right.
but it is still, in a way, that is what is being practiced underneath.
Yeah. So I would probably get breakfast in bed or get hugs and kisses just to. Yeah.
So you come, Daddy, how are you?
Yes.
You know? Yes. What do you want?
Yes.
You know?
and you learn to read that from the children. It's like.
Some parents learn to read it very early from their children, and we do it as adults.
Right.
So that's what it is.
Right.
So in the mind eye, especially as grown-ups, when we grow and we develop, we understand the power that sex has.
Right.
And sometimes we use it for the wrong reasons. Sometimes we use it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
I'm not judging, because I don't know what is the right or the wrong reason.
But there are reasons.
There are
for the
reasons.
same. Everybody does what they
Everybody
have to do.
does what they have to do, and it is something that is used. The other component is sexual and reproductive health. A lot of times, like for example, a simple thing as a pap smear, that is part of your sexual and reproductive health.
Right.
And I've heard women say, well, they won't go for a pap smear because it hurts. I don't want to be too explicit on your program.
No. Feel free to be explicit.
But a regular sexual encounter would hurt more than a pap smear. I understand it is something that is uncomfortable,
Right.
doesn't bring you any pleasure, there's no orgasm to be had from a pap smear,
Right.
but still it is necessary to take care of your sexual and reproductive health.
Right.
How we wash ourselves, even as men and women.
Right.
So for men who are not circumcised, you have to pull back the foreskin of your penis and wash under it, or else it's cottage cheese for days. Nobody wants that.
Exactly.
And for women as well, it is important to wash yourself properly, wash your vagina properly. It is not recommended that women douche very often, because it messes with the flora and the fauna of your vaginal walls.
Exactly. Like something I heard this Trinidadian comedian say, it's supposed to smell like itself. The vagina smells like the vagina. It doesn't have to smell like a bunch of roses.
So I remember that particular comedy, and it came about when people had this whole pineapple craze.
Right.
You can eat a whole field of pineapple. Your vagina is not going to smell like a pineapple.
Exactly.
It's going to smell like a vagina.
That is how it was meant to smell.
That is how it was meant to be.
Right.
The other thing, which is a touchy area for a lot of people, is your sexual orientation. And want it or not, it's something that is natural.
Right.
Individuals are attracted to who they are attracted to sexually. So I may be attracted to a female, I may be attracted to a male, I may be attracted to a male, a female, and an animal.
It's your orientation.
That is your orientation.
It's what you're comfortable with.
We're not here to judge. We're not here to say what is right. We're not here to say what is wrong. We're just here to discuss what comes naturally.
What is.
What is.
Yes.
So we've heard a lot of judgments on individuals and their sexual orientation. We've heard that it's not of God, it's not right, you'll be doomed, you'll be down to hell, and all the rest of it.
Right.
But I think what is important for us to understand is to appreciate individuals for who they are and respect them for what they are. We don't have to approve. They don't ask us to approve. We don't have to approve of them, but we should not be disrespectful.
Okay, so let me just interject here. What about those individuals who are just, let's see, adopt an orientation for financial gain or for whatever other benefit?
I like that. So it comes back to the other component of human sexuality, which we discussed earlier, which is sexualization.
Right.
So individuals understand that there is power in sex.
Yeah.
There is power in sex, and people use it for different reasons.
Right.
So a young man may realize, this guy is interested in me and he has a lot of money. I can stay home and sleep all day and wear the best of things, drive the best car. And so that is an abuse of the power of sex.
Okay.
So that's sexualization.
Okay.
We may choose to call it other things. We may choose to call it commercial sex work, which is what it may be, because it may not be one partner, it may be several partners, it may be a service that the individual is offering.
Right.
So I come back to it again that we don't judge.
Right.
We shouldn't judge individuals. We don't judge. But we educate and we inform. Continue to educate and inform, because I think a lot of times we do a lot more damage with our criticisms than good. And if we learn to respect individuals, it may make everybody's life a little easier.
But then there's such a breakdown in society in terms of respect towards others. A lot of people tend to think that because of who you are, or because of your background, again, your sexual orientation, then you should not be respected, period. So what you do, they have to find every way to denigrate you or bring you down.
Well, certainly, but the thing is about it too, when you find individuals who are overly critical of people's sexual orientation or individual sexual choices, it's because they too are battling with their own issues sexually. It could be that they were abused, it could be that they have not reached their sexual peak or their full sexual potential. They may hear people talk about it but have never experienced it, or that they're just plain miserable. We know we have that.
Yes.
But there's always a backstory. So even with these individuals, you even give them a break as well.
Sure.
But the society we live in particularly small communities, small places. I'm not going to pick specifically on Dominica because other small islands have their issues.
They have the similar issues. Yeah.
They have the similar issues. And it comes back to our religious background as well. Because we're taught Adam and Eve, and a lot of people use that as an excuse when it comes to sexual orientation. But we're not taught about ourselves, we're not taught about our bodies. And that is where the problem stems from.
Sure.
We're not taught to understand what is going on. We're taught that even pleasure in ourselves as individuals, that's a big sin.
And that it's a sin.
So in the comfort of your own room with your candles and your melted scents and everything else, and you choose to be sensual with yourself, that's an issue.
Right. And it shouldn't be, because isn't it actually supposed to be healthy?
Oh, honey, it is really an issue and really a sin. I'm going straight to hell. I'm headed straight for the fire.
I have a one-way ticket.
But again, so it's important that we explore ourselves as sexual human beings and understand. I mean, the home has a responsibility, as well as the school has a responsibility, and the church has a responsibility.
Indeed.
As the pillars in the community that young people look to, the different groups that we have, they have a responsibility as well.
Yes.
And I think until we get to that point where we can be honest about ourselves as sexual human beings, we'll continue to have these problems. We'll continue to have young men and young women in closets because they don't want their parents to know what their real sexual orientation is. We'll continue to have, I'll say quote unquote, fake marriages because men choose to get married to a woman because it's what society desires. They want to save face.
Yes.
They don't want people to know what their real orientation is. But deep down, they dying their desires to be with somebody else.
Exactly.
And when the lights goes off, they're with somebody else. Yeah. So it's really sad.
It is.
It's really sad, and it can lead to several problems. Emotional problems for an individual and for families. And anything that happens in the family, it will stem out in the society.
Right.
So you may have children come to school and act out, and you wonder, but they're supposed to be from a very good home, but you don't know what is going on within that individual, that child, that maybe something that they experience in a home or something that they're fighting with. Within themselves,
that is true.
Yes.
Because you may get the best upbringing at home, but you get out and then there's peer pressure, or you see certain people behaving a certain way and you want to understand why, and then you get curious and you want to explore as well.
Yes.
And
then you don't understand the things that you feel.
Right. And you don't have somebody to properly explain.
And you don't have somebody that you can ask.
Yes.
You may want to ask a teacher, but the teacher may say, "Oh, that's not my job. That's your mother's job."
Or the teacher might say, "Oh, you're nasty," especially if it's a guy that says he's attracted to another guy. Depending on the teacher, because you have some that can be pretty understanding.
Yes. So not understanding your sexuality can be a major issue. Something we overlook a lot. I know in recent times we've had some issues with young girls going missing.
Yes.
I saw the comments. I read the comments.
I saw those. And people can be so hypocrite. I mean, the girl goes missing and the first thing you say is she went to look for a man. Okay, it may be the case, but what is the root factor? Yes. Where did it stem from?
Yes.
You know what I mean? And we fail to ask those questions. Yes. We fail to identify those problems and find solutions.
We don't like to ask the hard questions. No. We don't like to be made to feel uncomfortable. We don't like to be taken out of our comfort zone and discuss issues that are supposed to be locked in the closet.
Exactly.
So let's not talk about this. Just put this in a closet, lock it away, and let's talk about the fur stuff, the fun stuff, the fluffy stuff. Let's just add all the fluff to life and forget about everything else.
Don't need to get all the rocks and all the metal shavings and all the and smooth them out and make them fluffy as well.
Indeed we do.
Turn them into soft pillows as well, because unless we target those things, we're going to end up, it's not going to get lost, it's not going to go away. Because yes, it's locked away in the closet, but some curious person might find the key and go and open it and say, okay, what's in there? And then what happens?
It doesn't go away.
Right.
So at some point we need to have the conversation. And I think, with YouTube and all the other
sites, the
sites that we have, social media sites that we have, we can use them if we're uncomfortable. There are various programs that I've seen and videos that I've seen on those various sites that would address how a parent can deal with talking to their children about sexuality, talking about good touches, bad touches. We hear it all the time, but we don't want to tell our children. It's not okay for Uncle Y to come home and say, hey, you're growing nice, and slap your child on her bottom. That is not acceptable.
Right. Exactly.
It's not acceptable. And your child should know that.
Right.
Your child should understand that. So anybody does it. And it's a thing that we probably do in our community. Hey, what you're growing titty already?
Yes.
That is not acceptable.
Right.
A growing titty, that's not your damn business.
It's not your business.
Okay?
Stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane. Keep your hand in your pocket.
Right.
That's how it starts.
Exactly.
So if we teach our children these things that are not acceptable, they know when it's done, by who it's done, and that's how we get to develop and understand, that one, not to be trusted.
Yeah, that is true.
But if we don't tell them, if we don't have the discussion with them, they feel it's okay.
And then the slightest touch that they get that feels pleasurable, I'm in love.
Let's not even go there. Because we know that we know what it leads to.
Yes.
Well, we shouldn't say let's not go there, because that's what we're trying to do, to get it out in the open and go there.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, even with adults, you understand your body is sensitive. Even if taking a shower in the bathroom, you're washing yourself properly, you feel nice. There's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong
So
with
you have to understand that your child growing up now is going to experience those very same sensations.
Yes.
Okay? Because they're not immune to it. They're human just like you. They're a sexual human being just like you. So the feelings that you are feeling and experiencing, they're going to be experiencing
at one point or another.
At one point or another.
Yeah.
So as a parent, as an adult, it is the onus is upon you to help them
precisely
to get into that role.
Right. Understand and learn to cope with.
Exactly.
And when you develop that relationship from early, then they're not going to be as confused when they experience those different feelings, and they'll know that they can come back and ask you a question, and get information.
Yes. And like we mentioned earlier, it's really not just about the sex part of it, because a lot of the reasons people shy away from it is just because they feel about the sex part of it. But it helps the individual to develop that self-esteem,
right? Because
they understand themselves that much better.
Exactly.
So they're able to develop that relationship with themselves as well,
right.
And it makes it easier, and they're more comfortable being around their peers, whether it's of the opposite sex or it's of the same sex. Some children shy away from being with pairs of the opposite sex, because believe it or not, even in 2021, their mother will say don't play with boys, or their parents will say don't play with boys.
And then the earlier thing we used to hear, like long before maybe growing up, if you talk to the boy, you will get pregnant.
Yes, but with that long before story, don't try to make people think I'm that old. Okay?
No, I'm not referring to me and you. I'm referring to what people used to say.
Old people,
old people. Me, I'm 21. I'm 21.
A woman doesn't reveal her age, so I'm not really going to tell you how old I am.
I'm forever 21.
Forever 21.
Forever 21.
Next year will be 21.
Yes.
And we appreciate that.
Indeed.
Yes.
All right. So how do we resolve that situation in terms of getting the information out? I mean, yes, it's available on YouTube, but you may still find kids trying to hide to source the information, or even adults as well.
Yes.
How do we get it out? How do we alleviate that problem?
The unfortunate part of this is that there's no magic pill. There's no magic pill. There's no one solution. It has to be a work in progress. It has to be dealt with based on how the individual that you're dealing with is able to cope, is able to develop a coping mechanism, is able to understand, is able to appreciate the information that you're given. So you may be at one level and the individual at another. Another thing that is sad for us as a culture, we don't do a lot of counseling, which is a sad thing, because counseling is something that can really help individuals. But I think it's another thing too. We feel I don't want to go and tell somebody my business, then my business out on the streets, and that kind of way. So we don't have that trust.
Or another thing, when you mention counseling to any of your peers, okay, that one belongs in the cuckoo's nest. She's crazy.
Yes, we kind of link counseling to craziness, and we think of the psych unit, and we think of everything that goes on, the medication, and so on. But that's not necessarily the case. It doesn't have to be. Counseling is basically a professional environment where you can express yourself, receive the information from a professional individual, and even given like best practices that you can do, things that you can do to help you with whatever the issue is. So the issue may be stemmed around sexual and reproductive health, or you as a sexual human being. You may have individuals in society, both men and women, who've lost their sexual drive, or we call it your libido, and you may be able to get help from a counselor.
Right.
I mean, granted, you may have to get somebody who's trained in the particular area, but a general counselor can help you to come to some sort of common ground with yourself as an individual.
And maybe develop some good coping mechanisms.
And definitely develop some good coping mechanisms. That is what's important. So unfortunately, there's no magic pill and there's no one strategy, but it's important to find what works for you as an individual. So like, for example, I always tell parents, you don't talk at your children, you talk to your children, you talk with your children. And don't talk to them at the time that you're angry about the issue. Talk to them at a time where you're probably watching a good movie. And you find you're relaxed and you find a scene in that movie that you can relate to what is going on. And then you can talk about it. You may find that they may be able to open up to you at that point. Or a basic, maybe in the kitchen doing something and you guys laughing and talking about something and you bring it up. Don't bring it up in an angry moment because it never works.
But sometimes it's hard to stay away from bringing it up in the angry moment.
Yes, it is. It's very difficult. One other thing that we have to try to normalize as parents and as adults is that we don't know everything.
Exactly.
We don't know everything, so it's important for us to listen as well. And when I say listen, I mean not just listen with your ears, but listen with your eyes. If you guys understand what I mean, listen with your eyes. Listen with your whole body. Because sometimes, the children send out the messages, the young people send out the messages. And I don't want to just say children because I don't want people to think that this is just for adults who have children. I think as adults in a community, it is our responsibility. So we may say, oh, but it's not my child. But it's a child that your child would interact with. And if we think of it that way, that if we help that child, we also helping our child.
That is true.
That's how we need to think of it. So it's not because, that girl child loved me and I'm getting involved in that. But that girl child may very well be your child's best friend.
True.
She may not want you to know because she
hears
how
you
you
feel
talk
about
that.
Parents,
exactly. So it's important that we take up that onus upon ourselves as adults to be the caregivers and caretakers of the other children around us, especially as it relates to sexual and reproductive health and they're growing up as sexual human beings.
So about in your field, how often do you encounter this situation?
On a daily. Oh. So the thing about it is, currently, I don't actively do sexual and reproductive health education as I used to. But it's something that you encounter on a daily. And I try to remain who I am as it relates to being open. Because you encounter adults who have such difficulty talking about sexual and reproductive health or talking about themselves as a sexual human being. And you based on your responses, the individuals are like, what? Sometimes people are taken aback. How come you're so open?
Because I see some of your posts on Facebook, and
Facebook. What is that? I don't know.
Okay, I've seen something. Yeah, that's true. You don't know what Facebook is. I have seen some of your comments, or I've heard about some of your comments, and they're pretty open. Why? And some people actually take offense to it, and I wonder sometimes that. Did you fall off a pawpaw tree?
Yes.
Or were you, or are you asexual? Like, did you just split and, I mean,
it's surprising.
We use, and especially when you use the colloquial terms.
Yes.
I mean, come on, you grew up learning those terms, you knew about them. So why are you pretending to be shy and trying to evade the topic? And I think a lot of the times you see the issues like you mentioned earlier on is because of parents or should I say supposed role models who are afraid to discuss openly with their children or children around them or even other adults as well. So
it's unfortunate, and we're a very religious society. Here in Dominica, in Eastern Caribbean, around the world. I mean, we have a supreme being that we believe in.
Yes.
And we all feel that we want to die and one day go to heaven. And because of that, the leaders of our religious communities, I mean, sometimes, more often than not, I think they lead us in the direction that they feel that they want us to go, but not necessarily feeding us with all the necessary information that we make a decision for ourselves.
Right.
And that's the unfortunate part of it.
And again, some people tend to say, like, especially to the priests, you've never been married, you've probably never had a relationship, you've never had sex, then how can you want to counsel me on?
Well, about the part about them never having sex, let's not go there. The thing about it is, you don't have to be in a situation to be able to help somebody with that particular situation. So yes, if you have the experience, you may come to the table with something different. You come to the table with a different set of perspective because you've had the experience.
Yeah.
But because you haven't had it, it doesn't necessarily mean that you cannot guide on it. And that's a misconception that we also have, that we need to try and get out of.
Sure.
Definitely.
All right. Boy, we have so much more to talk about.
I know.
But time flies.
It does.
Yes. So this is where we wrap up, folks. So thank you for joining us and look out for another exciting episode. Definitely, Valda will be back.
We'll be back.
In the not too distant future. All right. So again, we want to thank you and thank you to our sponsors, ACS and Home Decor, JTEMME, IZZAVYBE Entertainment. Great evening, guys.
Vanity show. Come on, let's talk about it. 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 There's so much to talk about. So tune into the Vahnahbee show. Come on, let's talk about it. There's so much you need to know. So if you wanna talk about it, tune into the Vahnahbee show. There's so much to talk about it. There's so much you need to know.